Welcome back to my channel. I apologize for the wait, but needless to say, I kind of got carried away with this one. What you're looking at is a 1959 glass-drawn Fireflight. And as you can see, it's been repainted on the top. A little bit of fiberglass work. No windshield, which is actually kind of a big deal. Latex paint on the bottom. Spider cracks all over the top side of this thing. No interior left. One thing that surprised me is the back of the transom. It looks oddly good. The guy I bought it off of had it in his barn for 10 years, and the previous owner before him had it in his boathouse. So I don't know how much weather this thing has actually seen in the last 10 or 20 years. Okay, first things first, we gotta get everything off of it and out of it. And then what I want to do is flip it upside down to get the paint off the hull. Are those glass? That's pretty cool. After I replace these floor pieces, you can see those little ribs there. My plan is to add a couple extra pieces of plywood and flatten out the floor, which is completely unnecessary, but it'll be nice. The paint stripper I used was way too strong. It was actually peeling off the gel coat if I left it on too long. And I can't just leave raw fiberglass, I have to cover it back up. So that set me back a couple days. Here's a better look at the fiberglass. And like I said, I can't just paint over this. The pattern of the fiberglass would imprint through the paint and you would see it. And you and I don't want that, we want a smooth finish. The easiest, fastest way for me to do this is just spray gel coat back on it. Still have all these pits all over it. To fill these in, I'm going to use gel coat that's thickened with cabasol. Just try and learn from me and don't use the harshest paint stripper you can find. When it's sitting on the trailer, you'll be able to see this part of the boat. So I'm going to block it by hand, and that way there will be less waves in it. You probably can't see it on camera, but the fiberglass work is kind of shaped like this. And we want it shaped like this. So I'll sand it down and see if I can get the shape back. I always like to tint my primer. That way it gets it closer to the color I want, and it takes less layers of paint to cover. Before doing my first layer of paint, I'm going to sand some orange peel off. With this paint, you need to wait 7 days before you can sand and buff it, which gives me time to work on the trailer. This is the trailer I bought, one that has actual leaf springs on it. The original trailer didn't have any. We're going to convert this into a bunk trailer instead of these rollers. There's two ways paint bonds to something, mechanically and chemically. When you sand, you're adding roughness to the surface, which helps with the mechanical bond. It gives that surface some tooth for the paint to grip onto. have to make hardware for the front bunks to sit on. How I'm doing it is just cutting out a piece of C-channel with a piece of angle iron. And the angle iron will sit on top to hold the bunk, and the C-channel will get bolted to the trailer. I'm countersinking the bolts into the wood to make sure they don't touch the bottom of the boat. I'm making a transom mount that'll fit on the prong of the tractor. Instead of flopping it around on the ground, I can just hopefully hook it up and spin it in the air. So far the transom seems to be holding up alright. My plan is to just leave it and hopefully it's good enough, and if not, I'll just replace it next year. So now to remove the rub rail. I've learned that Glastron will actually fiberglass the nuts on the inside, so that means I'll have to cut them out. For all these spider cracks, I'm using a diamond bit Dremel, and I'll just grind them out and then fill them back in. I've noticed when the boat gets around 30 or 40 years old, it'll always have these spider cracks on them. And usually it's just age. and the gel coat will continue to shrink and get brittle. It's not structural per se. Maybe if your boat's newer and it has these. You're probably wondering why not just take a grinder to these, and you can, but you'll lose the shape of the boat. To get it back, you'll have to build it up and then carve it back out and hopefully have the right dimensions. Is that way too much? Since I'm using polyester resin, it has a higher shrink rate than, say, vinyl ester. So my plan is to top coat this with vinyl ester fairing compound. As this cures, it'll create a little divot, and then I can put my fairing compound over top of it to fill it in. Sometimes it takes a week or two to shrink, and you won't notice it until it finally cures and creates these divots under your paint. This wing was ground out, and I'll have to find the shape of it again. Before filling in holes, we need to chamfer the edges. It creates a larger area for the filler, making a stronger bond. Put fiberglass on the backside, and then fill in the front with little pieces of fiberglass. This is 1708.
You know that?
I'm sanding it down with 80 grit, sanding it pretty flat. And then at the end I kind of get it up on its edge and create a divot for more fairing compound. Man, whenever I'm painting, it seems so windy. I really should have blocked under the bow when the boat was upside down, but I didn't, so here we are. Second coat of primer. I just added a little more paint to the ratio than I normally do. The way I'm planning these seats, I'll have to remove this lip. That way I can fiberglass a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood on top of this. It'll just give it some structure. And that way I can just bolt a seat to it. When they made the boat, it looks like they fiberglassed right over top of the foam. Since I'm going to be fiberglassing plywood all over this, it needs to be sanded. That way it just gives it a little bit of tooth for that mechanical bond we were talking about. I don't know what it is with my bomb and fiberglass work, but she doesn't mind doing it. This chop strand will act like glue when I put the plywood on top of it. She's adding thickened polyester resin to all the gaps, and that way there won't be any air pockets underneath when you go to put fiberglass over top of it. Again, these pieces to flatten out the floor are completely unnecessary. So that's what I want it to look like. I don't know what design I'll have on it yet, but maybe there'll be one piece of upholstery doing this. That's pretty good. These two corners will be 36 inches apart, so I can just transfer this onto the wood. 81 inches.
How's all this? Going there.
About here.
What I'm interested in is this piece right here. I'm gonna just do this. Hopefully I don't break it.
Now the only way I can get a bolt in the middle of this panel is by cutting a hole in it. And the only options really are like a storage spot or maybe a speaker. But I went with storage just because it's less money. is going to be the bottom of our seat, and this is going to be the backrest. I usually put the backrest on this piece, but there's hardly anything here. I'm going to have to make a backrest that's kind of floating off of it, because if I just have it touching, it'll scratch the paint, more or less. I've never made a seat like this before, so I have no idea how I'm going to do it. It'll be just like learning as I go.
All right.
There's the bottom of our seat. What I'm going to do is put hinges on it, hinges on the front, so that way you can get to your battery and your gas tank, and it'll swing up like this, potentially. How high do I make the backrest on it? And what shape do I use? You think I should make it so the back seat has headrest, or at least like the shape of a headrest. I don't know if you'd ever rest your head on it. So here's the bottom of our seat, and it's 45 inches. Bottom, then our backrest. Do I want it something like that? This won't be able to stay together with just screws in the bottom, so I'm gonna have to make side pieces to it. And then there'll be one over here. This will be 3/4 inch plywood. And then the hinges will be up here where it flips up. 3 or 4 or 5. The only problem is figuring out where these headrests go on my piece of wood. The backrest is going to be the same as this, 45 inches. 22.5 will be center of the backrest. 22.5. So then the headrests should be in the middle of those. So the peak of the headrest has to be at 11.25. Just to get an idea of what we're doing here. I know it's not even, but is that what I want? Is that what we want? These are more or less for looks and not actual use. It's just to give the back seat a little bit of shape instead of just rounding the corners and having it square. So that's lined up. That's lined up. This is just to get an idea of how big this seat is and where I should have the fake headrests. It looks pretty even. Let's just cut it out, see what it looks like. I have more plywood. Putting a giant fiberglass sheet on the back of this is probably a little bit overkill, and I likely didn't need it. If I was to do it again, I would do 6-inch strips or something, maybe 3-inch strips. It just made it really hard to put the upholstery on. Stipples don't like going through it. They will, but you have to try a couple times.
So this is the motor I just picked up. 750 bucks. It's a 1967 65 horse Mercury. Short shaft. Usually whenever you see these, they're laying in the dirt and the chrome is all scratched up, but it's in really good condition. It's on the front here. Like, look at the decal on the controls. That's crazy. Look at, oh, I guess there's a ding, but like hardly anything. Needs a new key, but we've been there before, so that's not a big deal. You guys know the drill. Right? We'll get the carbs off of it, get those cleaned or at least looked at. So what do we need to do here? Oh my God. Man, what is this, bird cage? Yes.
This is generally why I stay away from Mercury engines. It's an hour or two of just taking stuff off before I can even get to the carburetors. On an Evinrude or Johnson, the carbs can be off in like 5 or 10 minutes. The only reason I went with the Mercury this time is it'll match the boat better. If you guys have seen my previous videos, you know I like black accents.
This is looking like it's going to be pretty fruitless. And what I mean by that is these are going to be pretty clean. But at least we checked. From the outside, it looks like these things were cleaned yesterday. So somebody replaced this recently. I couldn't get those any cleaner. It's kind of nice though. That's brand new. Right on. Right on. Nice. They don't look too bad down here.
Okay, so the one wire looked beige at the time, and the only other color I had close was orange. If you look at the computer box, the actual piece of plastic is white, and I didn't even bother to look at that. So that orange wire should actually be white.
No, color. This is just the manual choke. Wow. Looks like it was just put in there. Now that was the bottom one, this is the top one. You see there, piece on the inside. Just a little bit. Help it go in. That's all things.
So my camera died again. You didn't really miss anything. It slid on there all right.
Okay, to simulate the key switch being on, I hooked it up to this beige one, and I'm giving it 12 volts. I go from here all the way to the battery.
I wonder if I can show you guys all these scratches.
I don't know if the camera's picking that up. This thing's been repainted before. Floor unit's all scratched up. So I'm just gonna peel the stickers off this thing.
I used to buy Wizzy wheels, but the quality went downhill. I just spent the extra money and got a 3M one, and I love it. It's so much faster. It lasts longer. No, I'm not sponsored either.
Alright, I would normally sand this, but this edge would be impossible to get by hand. Well, not impossible, it would just take a long time. And I can't just leave it. If I painted over it, you would see it. So I'm gonna go back to the paint stripper and strip this off. I don't know about the lower unit, it's not flaking nearly as much as the midsection. Like this, I wouldn't mind sanding it. It's just this weird little edge in here. don't know if you guys can see it, but that's cracked. I'll cut this off. Oh, that wire's gone, it looks like. Is there a part number on it? Look at that. No way. All right, let's see if that gives us anything. 1, 2, 4. Oh, that's just the key replacement? That's kind of cool. We already attached. A little bit to see the colors. Black in front. Now there's a way to test that. Then we push the button. There, now she's working. Got a new key switch, but it won't fit in the housing. It's not the right one, but so I'm just going to use a Dremel and Dremel it down a hair. Now that's in. I couldn't find the right one, or the replica of this one, since it's so old. So I just got a Johnson Evinrude. It'll work. Same posts, same amount of posts. Okay, on the key switch we have a B, we have an M, we have an S, we have an I. That looks like a C. Battery. M is ground. S is starter. Actually, the starter's solenoid, but I is ignition. Remember that white wire that I had to hook up to give it power so it would run? C is choke, but the choke is for the push choke, and we're not going to use that. We're going to use the button on the top. So we'll have to figure out how to wire that. This one's red, black. Starter, usually it's yellow. Yellow. On the engine, we did not have this as a white, we actually have this as orange. I'm just holding it in place with the soldering iron until it hardens up. Now that it's sticking to it, I'll just turn it back on. Let's see if I can just push it off. There we go. I also want to put a box in behind that so you're not just like dumping stuff back there and losing it. Maybe like 2 cup holders. Okay, the reason I made these is to make this edge a little bit thicker. Now, you could just wrap your upholstery over it without this, and it would look fine. What I'm thinking is I'll add this Hightam gimp on it, and if I add it, it's not wide enough to do it. It's just not wide enough. I think this is 3/4 inch. I'll do an inch Hightam. So to make that thicker, This will fit a lot better. I will glue it. This is just to sand it. Okay, I don't want these cables running along the floor, so I want to figure out where I need to put a hole to put it behind here. So the hole should be about there in the cable. So put it right about here. Now on the back side of your boards, these go on, and that's what holds the bolt in place. So you can thread it through. I'll show you guys. And that'll lock it in, so when you shove that through the fiberglass, you can put a nut on it and tighten it down and your bolt won't spin. And then this will be black with the diamonds going through it, or squares. And then this will be red. And then all of this open space, it'll be red. This will be black with red diamonds. These side panels, I think I'll just make those red. So this middle piece will be black with red diamonds, or red stitching. So if I pull this too much, you can see a little bit of a dip there. And we don't want that. We want it even the entire way across. So I'm just going along inch by inch, just making it even with the last little bit. A little better. Over there. And that's there we go. What we got? Now to separate it all. Some people just cut right along the seam here. Some people try to separate it. See if I can separate it. I need a third hand. I'm not reefing on this either, like I don't want to stretch anything. Just enough to expose the threads. Nice. Alright, we have to figure out the bottom seat. Well, gotta figure out how high it comes up. I think these will just come out eventually. If I just get it in the sun. And if not, that's alright, I can live with that. Here's your bottom seat. So. So yeah, once again, the reason for the black is I'm running out of bread.
The way I'm making this backrest is not how you're supposed to do it. The backrest and side panel should all be one piece of upholstery. The bottom seat can be separate. I just didn't trust myself to make one giant piece that fits perfectly. Looks all right. The tape on the side of the boat is just to divide it up into sections. And that way I can see where I've done and where I haven't done. After buffing with a wool pad, it'll leave these holograms you can see in the light right there. And the way to get rid of them is to use a DA and a foam pad. I don't know how it works, but somehow it removes them.
Okay, so this is just buffed. This is polished. All right, so instead of the water just getting stuck there or like going down below the keel, I'm gonna run some tube through it. I 3D printed these pieces. They'll just slide on the end. I'll glue them. Little chamfer on the inside. Yeah, I'm learning. I know, I'm learning. On there. Here's a rub rail. Here's the shape of it. It's from Taco Marine. I forget the size, maybe I'll put it up on the screen. The best thing to do is actually just do a measurement and look at what they have. I should soak this in water, but I think we'll be fine. Since I made this side panel so big, that means this is kind of like the control box. It's the same width as it. It's gonna go about there-ish, maybe a little lower. And that means the seat's there. Because you can't have the seat under the control box. You don't want that really. That means straight up from the seat, the steering wheel to have it center would be about here. And would that look funny? It might look funny. As opposed to having it over here in the middle of the dash. But if I have it over here in the middle of the dash, it doesn't line up with the seat. And I feel like that would look funny as well. So I'm gonna have to line it up with the seat, I feel like. It'll feel better when you're driving. It'll probably look better. It just sucks it won't be lined up in the middle of the dash. This is what the steering wheel will look like if I just do a straight, I don't know what it's called, a straight assembly. And then your seat's gonna sit about like to here. So I got this tilted one. And we'll put the steering wheel up a hair. So the assembly is pretty long. I'm just hoping when I tilt it, that the back of the assembly doesn't hang down where your legs go. I guess we need this piece first. Like that. Honestly, under the dash, I don't think it'll interfere as much as I thought. Instead of putting the switches right in the dash, I'm going to have this 3D printed switch panel. Okay, so here's the plan. Here's our socket, which needs to go inside the boat. I 3D printed these two pieces. The socket will screw into here or glue onto there, and then I'll glue this piece on the inside of the boat. The threads will stick through the boat. I think it's just a 5 millimeters of fiberglass. And then what I'll do is I'll cut these tabs off and glue it onto this piece. And then once those are together, I'll be able to put the light in from the back. And then I'll just be able to screw the light on from the outside. And that way, if your bulb ever gets burnt out, you can change it from the outside and you don't have to root around back in the fin trying to take this thing out and whatever. So we'll see how this turns out. Should be okay. Should be pretty cool. Fuse panel. Button switches with 5 wires coming out of them, which I don't know what any of them do. Turn signal. Left, left, right.
Instead of trying to tape off the entire rim, what I like to do is just spray the paint on and then wipe off the overspray with acetone. For me, it works way faster than trying to tape it off.
All right, here's the little fittings I made. The nut was glued onto the light, and then the nut will thread onto this. To get the angle of the boat, I put that little cone in there because I didn't want the lights coming flat off the boat here. Now when I put that in, it holds it horizontally with the boat. Now that'll hold the light. The light will go in. This screws on. And that's it.
You'll like that anyways. Here you go. Figure it out later. I think over your legs. That. Let's go. We got it. Ready?
This was the only way I could mount the seats and still have them swivel without adding like 2 or 3 inches to the height. I'll just put lag bolts in each corner to attach it to the boat.
Right there.
Just a grommet.
So, big old loop enter. How do we want it?
Okay, we're in. Put it locked in. Give that a spin over top of it. There we go. Like that.
The gap over there. Not much gap there. Okay. Armrest. Armrest fit's kind of normal, actually. I didn't really plan on using it. It's more for the looks, but it doesn't feel that bad. But you're still gonna have your arm up on the boat. Hopefully, think of it. And mother gloves. Don't matter too much. There's a bottom. Okay, we just mark it up. 15. 16. 16. center. Okay, we have the hardware in. I'm just going to set the windshield on top so I can figure out where I need to drill my holes. There's a little bit. Put it this way. Put it that way. Right to there. Goes in like that.